Welcome to a Celtic State of Mind, just as the sirens can be heard outside your window there, JP. I'm Paul John Dykes, and this is John Paul Mason. It's a Thursday. Big smiles on our faces. I'm looking at that jersey over your shoulder. Of course, we'll get to last night's action, the late show. But let's hope the wee man is fit and available for Sunday.
Big time. Like last night, we definitely got away with one big in the last minute. And we got away with one without playing with a recognised striker. Really, I mean, Abada, he did all right. I mean, obviously scored a goal and got us in front, but really want to see Kyogo Furuhashi in that starting lineup on Sunday if it's in any way possible. But again, what if he starts on Sunday and then picks up an injury and then misses the game in the second? There's all those sort of permutations. But as long as he's fit, then yeah.
We went into that game last night, JP. We were talking during the day about obviously the lineup and how the lineup for the Ross County game could be made with one eye on the cup final and all the different permutations that might have happened with regards to the selection. I just wanted to run through some of those because they're as relevant this morning as they were yesterday in relation to how we're going to line up on Sunday. At some point during the show today, we will also bring in Kevin Graham due to the fact that today would have been Tommy Burns' 65th birthday, the 16th of December, and the late, great Tommy would have been 65 today. And I know, JP, that from talking to yourself, how close he was to your heart as a Celtic fan and having been involved with the various Burns suppers over the years as well.
Yeah, he was some man, and that play that they did at Celtic Park in the Kerrydale Suite is still, well, got it right here. It is. That was the programme which they raised. I think something like 14 grand. I think they raised for the charity, for the Tommy Burns charity. So that was great in itself. But yeah, I mean, just a guy that will always be in the fabric of Celtic, and he. The great thing about that is he was aware of it as well. He knew the things that he'd done, and as a player and as a manager, he knew that he would be remembered, the famous "I'll be in the team that did the double." Then when people look back on this in 100 years, I'll be in the team that did the double. And having that sort of awareness about your worth and your value in Celtic's history it must have been a very proud thing for him to carry about with him every day. But he was never one to be showy about it or anything like that. He was just such a humble guy, and a very funny guy as well. And it was great listening to him speak and sing as well on many occasions. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but there was one time, instead of singing Mac the Knife, he sang The Greatest Love of All by Whitney Houston, which was an absolute curveball moment. I don't think anybody in the TV row, the TV debating chamber, whatever it was called, where we had the Tommy Burns supper, I don't think anyone was prepared for him singing Whitney Houston, but it happened. And I remember on the mornings after the Tommy Burns supper, there used to be a champagne breakfast at the International Bar and Bistro, as it was known. There was very little champagne and copious amounts of Guinness, and it was basically everybody just kind of continuing on boozing after being out till all hours the night before. And Nick Wood, who is the sort of supremo, I don't really know what to describe Nick Wood as. He's just like this sort of ever-present guy that has ran the Heriot Watt supporters club since time began, it feels like. And Nick and I had an argument, a jovial argument over the champagne breakfast about whether or not it was "We Are the World." Do you remember that charity anthem that was in the 80s? So Nick was just like, how weird was that, Tommy Burns singing "We Are the World" last night? I was like, Nick, he didn't sing "We Are the World," he sang "The Greatest Love of All." And Nick was adamant that it was "We Are the World." And eventually I managed to get other people on side to sort of remind Nick that it was Whitney Houston. Both equally as bizarre to be sang by a footballing legend like Tommy Burns, but nonetheless it happened.
I would say to anyone who gets an opportunity moving forward to attend one of these Burns suppers to definitely do so. I was absolutely thrilled to be at one a couple of years back, and that was my first. And I've got to say that looking back over all the posters from the previous years with all the guests who had been there, it's something that I kind of missed out on until fairly recently, JP. But I would recommend it to anybody. We are going to be talking about last night's game in a big way, the selection issues that we might face for Sunday. Some of the people who came in, some of the players who came in and done well or otherwise. We need to talk about the goals. We need to talk about Ralston. And we also have to speak about Carol Starfelt. That has created quite a bit of discussion both last night and this morning in relation to the refereeing decisions, Starfelt's composure being lost when he was booked first time round, whether or not he should have been booked. And that debate will rage on. I've been a massive champion for Celtic players to be protected, JP, all season. We've got a wee black book here with 7 or 8 offences in it that, Celtic players have been on the end of challenges that should have resulted in red cards. So there's absolutely no way I'm viewing this situation from a skewed perspective. But my point last night was that at that point, after having such an excellent return to the team, Carol Starfelt, I think he's looked far more composed, far more confident, and he's fitted in really well since he's come back into the side alongside Cameron Carter-Vickers. He continued that form into the first half, I think. I think he looked solid in the first half. Went for a run, Ayer style, a couple of times to turn defence into attack. Everything was going well. But then it seemed as though a substitution by Ross County changed all that, because you had Jordan White coming on in 54 minutes. A couple of minutes later, I think that was a massive part of the game. A couple of minutes later, Ross County equalised. He seemed to be winning header after header after header. And Starfelt, his performance kind of turned a little bit. My criticism of him last night wasn't his overall performance, because I think over the piece, as I say, had a very good first half. But it was his reaction to being elbowed. And people are saying to me, what do you expect him to do? Well, I don't want him to get booked. I don't want him to get into a situation, JP, where he's given the ref that choice. And of course, Joe Hart goes up to him and tries to compose him at one point, as he did with Juranovic against Dundee at Dens Park. I think Starfelt was unlucky. Of course he was. But don't give the referee the decision. Don't give him the decision to make. I
haven't seen the replay of the elbow. I've heard mixed sort of opinions and reactions to it. Some people have said that it was part and parcel of the game. Get on with it. I think it was Tony saying that last night, but then I've heard other people saying that it was it was a foul, and therefore he was complaining about the fact that it hadn't been punished. I just saw him on the deck, and he seemed to be down for ages, and I could see that he was really angry whilst he was on the ground, and it was quite strange to see someone getting so angry but also sitting on the pitch at the same time. Normally people are up and they're kind of waving fingers and everything else, but he just seemed to be angry from his position. So I can only imagine that he said something out of turn to the ref. I didn't even see the yellow card. I didn't know he was on a booking. Somebody mentioned to me behind me and said, "Oh, he's desperate to send him off," and I went, "He's not on a yellow card." And he went, "Yeah, he is." And then about 4 minutes later, he kind of gets into that tussle with the right winger for Ross County, and yeah, I mean, from where I was, it didn't look good. I've seen the replay again; doesn't look good. It is probably a booking. You'd be wanting it if it was against you, but then it goes back to the first yellow card, and you're like, well, why did that happen? And why did that put us on such a tightrope for the rest of the game after controlling the whole of the first half? I mean, it was all Celtic in the first half. There was no. I mean, I think it was Billy Dodd said that based on the second half, Ross County deserved to get something out of the game, but based on the first half, they didn't. So then you could fling that back and say, well, Celtic deserved to win the game based on the first half and maybe not the second. But we played the whistle, and the minutes were added on, rightfully so, because of the injury time and the substitutions and whatnot. And there's further added time within added time, which is how added time works. People seem to have forgotten that in the sort of the aftermath of last night. It's like, well, yeah, if there's more added time in added time, then it'll get added as well. Otherwise, what's the point in it? So anyway, yeah, I think Starfelt, could maybe consider himself unlucky, but it depends what he said to the referee. I mean, I don't know how good his English is.
See, the big thing for me as well, though, JP, you're watching the game live and as a fan, so the emotions are running high. And I said this last week, which was the first time I'd ever commented on a game having watched it retrospectively. When you know what the score is, when the emotional part of it's out the road because you know you've won the game, 1-0 against Motherwell, and you watch it. And I'm not an analyst. I've said this time and time again. I'm an observer. I watch football from a football fan's perspective, and you can take in all the stats and all the data analysis and use them in your kind of analysis. But when you're watching the game and it's your reaction, what I can guarantee is I always want the best for Celtic. So when Carl Starfelt gets sent off, similarly to when Beaton gets sent off against Midtjylland, I'm looking at how could he have prevented that? Because going down to 10 men isn't great. Racking up a suspension when we've got so many injury problems isn't great. So you're frustrated with the player. But when I look at that, why did he stay down? Well, he's got blood, which means he needs to get treatment. And he's probably thinking to himself, well, rather than going off the park and putting my team down to 10 men, I'm going to sit right here and I'm going to get the treatment on the park. So I get that. And that's the experience that maybe I was critical of him last night. I was maybe saying he's got the experience, he should know better than to get put in the book for that. But he was booked. That, for me, looking back on it, the referee should be more, I think, focusing on the elbow and making a decision there. It's difficult to know exactly what's said, but he's having a conversation, the ref, with Joe Hart at some point, where he's shrugging his shoulders as if he didn't see who the player was that actually elbowed Starfelt. Now,
Was it bad? Was the elbow bad? Like, was it a clear?
It wasn't aggressive. I wouldn't have thought it was an aggressive one. It was more of a flailing arm, and he's elbowed Starfelt, and he's obviously burst his face. So you can get the fact that it's difficult to maintain your composure, and that's some of the discussions I've had this morning, not arguments, discussions on Twitter around what do you expect him to do? Well, I expect him not to get a booking and then be walking a tightrope for the rest of the game, and then for him to fall off that tightrope at the first opportunity the ref gets, because we've been critical of the refs all season, JP, and we know that a lot of these big decisions are going against us. There's another one in the game last night. It's a good job we scored because we weren't getting the penalty. And when you watch that back, and it's a penalty every single day of the week.
A guy put on Twitter that he'd watched I can't remember his name. He'd watched the Borussia Dortmund game and they got a penalty through VAR for the exact same thing that happened in that instance last night. So, and that was with the benefit of looking at it over and over and over. I know that it's obviously 1 second and they've got to make a decision, but I mean, that was a pretty clear. I mean, the guy put his hands up to stop the shot, and it was a goal-bound shot that the keeper would have had to deal with. So, yeah, I mean, all's well that ends well and all that, but yeah.
I know, but my angle always when I'm watching a Celtic game is what's best for Celtic, and I'm thinking down the line, he's on a booking, he eventually gets sent off. You kind of seen that coming. The minute he was on a booking, like the fan said behind you last night at the game, JP's been dying to send them off. I mean, the officials are poor. We've been going on about it all season. Don't give them a decision to make. So it's nothing personal against Starfelt. I've been kind of praising him particularly since he came back in. I think he's building a good partnership with Cameron Carter-Vickers, and you've got to remember Joe Hart behind him. So that trio, that triangle there at the back, I'm pretty confident with the guys now. And going into the game against Hibs in the cup final, going into the game against Rangers on the 2nd, I'm pretty confident with those three in the kind of spine of your defence. Absolutely. So the last thing I want to see is for that momentum to be shifted. I don't want one of them to get injured. I don't want one of them to be suspended. We then have to bring in the replacement. So there's an element of frustration with the player to give the ref that decision to make, because more times than not this season it's gone against Celtic, and it's not paranoia. We've listed the red card offences that have gone unpunished. So that was a Starfelt moment. But I did feel though that when that substitution happened in 54 minutes, it did give Ross County a boost, and more so than anything else, that's what put us a wee bit more on the back foot, which was frustrating because we dominated that first half. But as the manager, what do you do at that stage? You go in at half-time, you're a goal up. We were talking about it at half-time, JP, saying, you know what, we're going to get a second goal. Tony and I had predicted 2-0 Abada for the first goal. And at half-time, I was confident that was going to happen. I didn't expect us to lose a goal the way we did. And when we look at that goal, let's before we do that, because Scales is going to come into this conversation, let's look at some of the changes that were made last night, JP, because, I asked the question, do we rest some players last night, with one eye on Sunday? And he did that, and he's rested Tommy Rogic. And we'll talk about Rogic again, because I think he made a massive impact. But he brought in Scales. I thought he was pretty deserving, and after his first half performance, it looked like the right decision. Were you impressed by Scales overall?
Yeah, he was playing right in front of me for the whole of the first half. So I saw him up close and personal. It was the first time I've ever been to Dingwall for an away game, and I actually thought that there'd been more trips to Dingwall, but I counted them up. There's only been about 10 or 11 in the league since they were promoted. So there's not been that many to have missed out on. Hell of a trip though. But yeah, I saw Scales up close, and I liked the look of him. I think he looked composed. Distribution was good with the ball. Awareness around about him for passes and looking for people to play into. He seems to have a good understanding with Callum McGregor. For McGregor coming short to receive the ball. I mean, some of the attacks that we went on in the first half were all led by Scales to McGregor then spraying out balls. I mean, that ball from McGregor to Scales that sent him through for the goal was brilliant. It was a really well worked goal. Mm-hmm. And yeah, okay, he lost his man at the corner, and you can see him put his head in his hands straight away to know, I've lost that guy. That's my fault. And I guess that's going to happen because, he's very, very, new in the door. People gave Starfelt a bit of a hard time of it at Tynecastle when he came. He was only, I know obviously Scales has been there, a good few months now in training and everything else, but it's a whole different ball game, literally, when you're playing in a high pressure away game at Ross County where it's, win or nothing. It's a draw last night was a disaster, and they all knew it, and the pressure was on them to deliver. Pressure's on him to deliver, very early on in his Celtic career. So, I feel for him that he's lost that man at the corner, because that'll, no doubt have maybe kept him awake last night despite the win. But I don't see it as a case of, oh well, he's not good enough or anything like that. I think he's done enough over a period of time in the first half to show that he's worthy of a jersey potentially on Sunday. I mean, imagine what a story that would be, starting in a final for Celtic if he was fortunate enough to be that. I mean, I think Tony said last night, I think manager probably will go with Taylor just because of the experience, because we see Scales making that mistake last night. He got away with it because Ralston came up with a winner, but we don't want to be making mistakes on Sunday. Not that I'm saying Greg Taylor's not prone to a mistake, but if you're weighing them up against each other, I would probably go with a more experienced head, just because he's played way more times for Celtic. And yeah.
See, the thing about Scales, it was interesting because you compare the comments we were getting on the halftime bulletin to the ones we got at the end, and a lot of the comments kind of flipped on their head, saying, "Well, he showed in the second half that he's not up to the level." I think you've got to look at the entirety of the game, his contribution in the first half. I think he got a fright within the first 5 minutes, where he realised, right, there's absolutely no wiggle room here. He ended up giving away a corner kick on that occasion, and there was one moment specifically in the second half where he's lost his man at the corner. But you've also got to look at his assist for the first goal. I thought it was a tremendous ball. Like you say, though, you can't forget McGregor's part in the lead up to that goal. And we're in a situation now where we're looking at the Hibs game on Sunday. We've got a number of left backs, Taylor, Scales, Montgomery. You've also got Juranovic, who has played there for us, and you've got the forgotten man in Bolingoli. So you've got 5 options at left back. I think that, after last night's game, the safest option, if you weren't thinking about who's going to be playing on the right-hand side of midfield or right wing, I would have thought you go back to Juranovic at left back and Ralston at right back. I think that's your safe option. But I don't think we're going to have that option, because of the dearth of right and left wingers that we currently have, because that's the two positions that really are going to give, unless somebody else comes back to full fitness unexpectedly, those two positions, left and right, are going to give Ange a bit of a dilemma on Sunday, JP. I've been a big champion of Montgomery. I've been really impressed. I think there's been one game against Dundee United at home, one each, where he didn't look his usual self, but he wasn't great last night, Montgomery. No. It wasn't his best performance, and I think there's maybe a wee question mark over him starting on Sunday now. However, who do you play? This is the big question. I mean, so you're looking at the left back, but that's going to be influenced by what happens in the midfield. It's going to be influenced, actually. Is Kyogo in the team? Because if Kyogo's in the team and Abada can go to the right, that allows you to put Juranovic left back. So there's loads of different dilemmas facing Ange going into the game. And I think that from what I've seen last night, I'm pretty confident with Scales. I like his physicality. I don't think Taylor's got that. And I think that if you're playing Monty in front of him, you need a wee bit of physicality. Johnston and Taylor are too weak on the left-hand side. I think you get a wee bit more. You get a wee bit more when Scales is in there. Do you think we'll revert back to Juranovic at left back? I seen many of his crosses last night were not what you would expect. Yeah, wayward.
They were wayward. I think it's important to actually talk about who the left back is going to be up against on Sunday, and it's a guy that absolutely roasted Rangers in the semi-final. So you're not coming up against someone that blows hot and cold. Martin Boyle will be right up for this because it's a cup final. He's been an informed player for Hibs. So whoever is in that position has to be bang on it on Sunday. There is no room for error. So it's definitely a dilemma for the manager. But he sees these guys every day in training. He'll know. I know there's this whole in Ange we trust patter going about, but I mean, I would trust Ange Postecoglou's judgment on who he'll play in that position on Sunday. And yeah, like you say, there's just so many question marks over the rest of the team because of the doubts in terms of the players' fitness levels. And it's a strange one. I don't recall there being this many injuries at Celtic for quite some time. I know we were hampered a bit last season, but it never was as bad as this. I don't recall it being. And Tom English, I'm loath to bring him up, but I mean, he brought up stuff on Twitter this morning or whatever, saying, Celtic playing the sort of poor me card, because of their injuries, and listing the internationals. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's got a grasp of knowledge of football, but you don't just throw players together who haven't played together in those positions, and then because they're international players, they should just be all right and get on with it. If they're not, if they've not played in those positions regularly, they're not going to be as effective or as good. So whilst I get his point to an extent, to absolutely savage us for basically saying, well, look, this is what we've got to play with right now. Yes, these players are well paid, but you're putting square pegs in round holes. It's as simple as that. So, to get a victory like that last night was absolutely massive, given the circumstances that we went into the game in. Because everybody, I don't think there was anybody going in there last night thinking this is an easy, 3-4-5. No, everybody was well aware we were going to have to dig out a result last night, and we did.
You mentioned there about an international for an international. It doesn't really stand up. I mean, you could say, well, Joe Hart's injured, but we're bringing in Scott Bain or we're bringing in Barkas. I mean, absolutely doesn't work that way, does it? Just because you've got an international cap doesn't mean to say it's like for like. If Joe Hart is lost in that Celtic team, it's a massive, massive drop in standard, regardless of who you replace him with. Yeah. And, it's the same for quite a few of the positions within Park. I would actually say at this moment in time, and we'll get on to him, but if Nir Bitton at this moment in time drops out of that Celtic side and he's replaced by someone like Sorrell or McCarthy, that's a drop in quality at the moment. Because last night, again, I thought I was a wee bit surprised, although it worked out well, that it was Bitton that came off when he did. I thought he was playing really well. he does definitely play a lot more diagonal balls than he had done previously, JP. He was demanding the ball constantly, wanting to be involved. There was times in the past with Beaton where maybe calling him a passenger's a wee bit harsh, but there was times where he wasn't shown for the ball. Players can hide in a game at times, whereas he was there. He was giving players an angle. He wanted the ball. He wanted to make something happen. If he drops out as really internationalist and he's replaced by McCarthy, Republic Island internationalist, that doesn't make it like for like. No. I mean, you can't say that. I mean,
he's at different levels and different stages of development and everything else. It's not as if everybody's a coiled spring ready to just go as soon as they get put on the pitch. I really don't think it's like that. But but Beaton, I think Beaton allows McGregor to play more freely, and that's an obvious thing to say. I'm no football expert, but you've got somebody protecting McGregor, and when McGregor turns and spins to go away, the way that he sees the game, it's just, I don't know, he's on a completely different level. He was a completely different level to anybody else in the midfield for Celtic or the opposition last night. I just think as soon as he turns and sees the pitch, he can. It's almost like it's like a game, and obviously it is a game, but he can just see it differently. And I watched him when he turned last night, and I watched him sort of look at the pitch, and he just looks at it in a completely far more sophisticated way than other people, and that's a credit to him and his experience now as well. I mean, look at the games he's played for Celtic and the trophies that he's won. He's been involved in everything. Not all of those other players have been involved in all the success. He's the constant that has been. We've lost all the other guys that have been constants in the success. Scott Brown, Edward, Tierney, Armstrong, they're all gone. But McGregor is the one that retains all that experience, and then it shows so much.
Yeah, he is the keystone. And I think the big thing with McGregor, he was the man of the match last night, I believe. You look at the game against Motherwell, he'll not come down as being part of the goal. He doesn't appear as the assist because obviously it went from Turnbull to Rogic. But his part in that goal against Motherwell was huge. He influenced that play to such a degree that the space opened up. He took a marker out the road and straight from the training ground, Rogic, brilliant finish by the way, but Rogic puts away the corner from Turnbull. Similarly, last night, you did point out that McGregor's passed the Scales, because everybody remembers Scales' pass and the goal by Abada. But let's look at the assist for the assist. That's McGregor done it again last night, and it was a tremendous pass. But I think he's in that form where last season compared to this season, it's night and day with McGregor. Now, it's maybe unfair because the circumstances last season were completely alien to just about everybody. But his performances, people were questioning at the beginning of the season. Is he captain material? Well, I think he's proved that he is. Certainly captain material. And it'll be great, I hope, to see him lifting a trophy again, but this time as a Celtic captain, and I'm not counting my chickens before Sunday, but it'd be brilliant to see that. I also reckon it would be great to see Tony Ralston, but we'll get on to him as well, lifting a trophy aloft. The Abada goal, there's been loads of discussion on a Celtic State of Mind, JP, about Abada playing through the middle. He started off really, really well out right. He was getting goals even though he was playing wide right. Seemed to have this knack of turning up at the back post and putting the ball away. It has been suggested that he should maybe be playing centre more often. It's been a forced change. Does he stay there? Is it all down to Kyogo on Sunday? I mean, Kyogo, he comes in Europe against Leverkusen at home and we throw him right in, and he's almost the guy that makes the difference. I mean, he had 2 great chances that night. Do we do the same with him? Because obviously, I think after 60 or 70 minutes that night, himself and McGregor were running on empty. I mean, it's a difficult one. Do you get what you can out of Kyogo, or do you keep him like we did with Rogic last night as a game changer?
That's a stick or twist conundrum, isn't it? Whether or not you sort of play your hand at the start, or you can keep it in your back pocket for later on. I don't know. I wouldn't be disappointed if Abada did start up front. I mean, he's got pace to burn, and he's got the awareness and the knowledge of playing in this side. Admittedly, he's not played through the middle, but he knows the system. He's been playing regularly enough to know where everybody is and where he needs to be. And well, he was exactly where he needed to be to score that goal last night. It was literally no effort on his part to finish that. He almost let it just hit off his boot to go in. Didn't need to rattle it. Didn't need to, carefully place it or anything like that. It was right on his foot, and he scored, and good composure to score the goal. Bigger pitch at Hampden as well, which would obviously, suit him, but it'll suit some of the Hibs players as well, no doubt. I mean, how long has it been since Kyogo Furuhashi got injured? Was it only last week? It was last week, and everybody was thinking he's going to be out for, weeks, and then that was nipped in the bud. I think Ange Postecoglou is quite cute on that front. I think he gets given a situation like that, and I think he knows that he can control the narrative of the whole thing, because it's ultimately he is the spokesman for the football club. Nobody else is asking anyone else any questions. Well, they are, but no one's answering them. But Postecoglou is the sort of the front and centre after every game, so he can say what he wants, and he can sort of build it up and let the media think that Furuhashi is going to be out for ages. Let us think he's going to be out for ages, because let's face it, how big a bonus is it when we that day against Leverkusen, when all of a sudden those names appeared in the team sheet, and the whole fan base was just like whoomp straight away with his like I say, his conduction. That's not a word. His controlling the narrative. Like I said, like he caused that buzz, and I think he knows that I think he likes the fact that he can control the buzz, because was it yesterday the interview with him and Shane Warne came out, and he said how he just likes to stand in the tunnel and listen to You'll Never Walk Alone, belting out in the ground and going, I'm part of this.
Yeah.
Like, this is I'm at the head of this football club. This is not me standing here as a spectator. This is me, and I'm the manager of this football club. And that is brilliant to know that that's how he's feeling, because you've got somebody in charge that really he gets it, appreciates what he's got. And when someone appreciates what they've got, they tend to do things a little bit, they'll give that extra 10%, 20%, that others might not. And
no, you're right. Well, it was just a week ago that Kyogo got injured, wasn't it, in the European game last week? But when you're talking about Postecoglou, I mean, he is one of these individuals who he appreciates that there are narratives flying about. There's a lot of noise flying about outside the bubble of Celtic, and he just lets them run with it. And if he's ever asked about it, he's always, he gives what he wants to give, and if he wants to keep his cards close to his chest, he does that as well.
Especially last night as well. His post-match last night, he just kind of batted away the whole referee thing. Like, he just kind of went, he didn't hone in on that one decision. He just said there was a few decisions that didn't go our way tonight, but we don't moan. We just get on with it, and we win games. And it's pretty self-explanatory and abrupt when he comes away with stuff like that. But I love to hear it. Just really
nail on head. Absolutely. Yeah. We have someone waiting in the wings here because it would have been Tommy Burns' 65th birthday today. December, great time for birthdays, December. Today is also Tommy Rogic's birthday. He's 29, and Paddy McCourt. It's his birthday as well.
Sagittarius.
That's it. Yes. Yesterday, whilst watching the game, it was also an Acsom listener's 50th. Ewan Martin, who is a long-time listener of the Celtic State of Mind, and who will be appearing on the show at some point during his 50th birthday celebrations, JP. Get him into the studio and appear on the show. I might even just let him sit here and deal with all the comments that are coming in. It'll be good for Ewan as well. So yeah, happy birthday to yourself, to Tommy, and also to Paddy. And we have our very own Kevin Graham coming in, because Kevin Graham, as you know, is just about to become a published poet, JP. And he did write a poem that went viral, and the poem was on Tommy Burns. So we're going to get him in, and he's going to recite that, because there's no better way than doing it live We do have an old video, Kevin, but let's get you in, Kev. Let's see if you can do it live. And this is in memory of the late, great Tommy Burns.
I'll just start it. This is called Tommy. Soho Street was your road to paradise, but it was already in your DNA, being Carlton born and bred. Your passion, your faith, your dream, your destiny that didn't have to wait long. Jock shouted at you to get off the pitch, pristine for a European night under the lights. Your shots snapped into the perfect net. And then your thoughts, a turning, then taking the acclaim of that jungle in full voice, were soon to be a reality. Your flamed hair was a fuse. Your flamed hair was a lion's mane. You had guile and you delivered it with a smile. Football delivered with intelligence, and a left foot that was a wand casting spells a Celtic way. You knew how our blood flowed, the inner workings of our beating hearts. Victories were celebrated like us rejoicing up there in the stands. You delivered Celtic into your charges, taught Celtic to those who weren't born into the cause. They knew what it meant to pull on that jersey. They knew they weren't just playing for a football team. They knew because of you. A supporter that got lucky, he says. Nah, we are the lucky ones anytime one of our own step onto that Celtic Park pitch and score last-minute winners. We are the lucky ones that we shared and lived Tommy's dream. We are there and always there, because he is here and always will be here. We were blessed by Tommy. He twisted, he turned. We all love Tommy Burns. Thank you very much, everybody.
Lovely words, Kevin. Are you going to stick around?
I'll stick around. It's my birthday in December as well, lads. So
wow. Wait a minute. JP, is you December or late November?
You can't read a poem about Tommy Burns and then hog the limelight yourself.
I know, aye. I've written one here about Kevin Graham. You want me to recite it? Right, here we go. Is it everybody's birthday in December on this show today then?
Nah, November.
Oh, you're late November, right.
I must admit, I love doing that poem. I really, really do. It doesn't feel like mine's anymore because it's went viral and the family have bought into it and stuff like that. It was a pleasure when Kevin Tate, penalty spot, asked me. He says you should come on and do it today, and it's always great to actually do the Tommy Burns poem, man. It's fantastic. Really, really love it.
Yeah, it's great. Brilliant words, Kev. And it's also Tommy Rogic's birthday today. Let's have a wee chat about Tommy, because he was on the bench in the starting lineup, and we spoke about the fact that it's a good weapon to have. When he came on, he was a weapon, because I think that it was a massive kind of change at that point. We needed something to happen. He started winning free kicks outside the box just because of his movement, his wizardry. And he does that every time he comes in. And then he plays a part in the goal. Of course, he gets an assist. And you think that, Tommy Rogic, when you consider that he is well on his way at this moment in time to exceeding his highest appearance total for Celtic. Now, I know it's a wee bit premature and we don't know what's going to happen from now to the end of the season, but if he continues to appear for Celtic in the kind of rate, or with the rate that he has done so far, he will beat his personal best of 42. He's already matched what he did last season in terms of appearances. And the season before that, the quadruple treble winning season, he's actually played more times this season already than he did in that season. So he has become an integral part of this side. Now, JP, maybe it was lazy, us adding dots and all the rest of it. We thought, well, he's Australian. Ange Postecoglou is Australian, was manager of the international team when Tommy was playing. This is going to work. But I don't think anybody expected it to work as well as it has done. He's been revitalised, isn't he?
Yeah, he has. And last night he went over to get some instructions from the manager, which he then relayed. I don't know if that was shown on the TV or not, but it was just something I noticed, him running over and taking instructions towards the end of the game. And it was just, he had like a patience about him last night, which I think the whole team really had at times. When you're watching you were watching this build up, and they were starting to move, and it was like passing, just intricate passing, and it wasn't getting rushed. I think they had total belief in what they were doing, and obviously that paid off. But I mean, Rogic definitely influenced the game in a major way. I think it probably gave the players on the park a lift as well to see him on the pitch, knowing that they've got a guy on the park that when they give the ball to him, something special can happen. And then the dink to the back post was special. I mean, you could say there's nobody else on the pitch that could have done that. It's an argument to be had, but I mean, I don't know if there is anybody else that would have had the cool composure to dink that. I didn't really see it from anybody else in the game last night, but then Rogic does it, and the bold Anthony Ralston rises above everybody and sends the place absolutely bananas. It was quite something.
It was quite something, and I'll tell you something. You were there, and you've managed to get down the road and on the Acsom Bulletin for 12:30. So hopefully that's strong coffee you're drinking there, JP. So that was a good effort from yourself.
Well, I have to be completely honest. I did the cheats way. I got the train up yesterday to Inverness, got a hotel, and it's quite decadent of me, I know that, but I got a hotel and then got a train first thing this morning back down the road. So I'm only in the door about an hour or something like that. But I just thought it's been on my. It's a bit of a strange place to have on your bucket list, but I like going to different football stadiums. I always have. And weirdly, I got an email from the footballgroundmap.com. You ever heard of that? It's like you can create a profile and you can like mark in on a map of the world where all the football grounds you've been to, so you can just share it as an image or whatever. And so now I can add Dingwall to that list. But yeah, it was something else to be there. I mean, say what you like about the fans spilling over onto the pitch. I mean, it was going to be a hot. The opposite to that was everybody leaving absolutely demoralised and downbeat with a 1-1 draw, thinking we've got a mountain to climb now. But then, the opposite to that was delirium.
Absolutely. There's a few things I want to say on that. The first one was, obviously, there's a great speech by Denzel Washington where he talks about the responsibility of media outlets not to always be first, but always to be right. If you just look on YouTube, it's a brilliant speech that he gives. It's at an award ceremony, but he takes the opportunity to say the responsibility is on you guys because you've got to be right. And that's more important than being first. And that was a small example of it last night. People running reports that Celtic had dropped more points. It was one each. The first thing I heard, because unfortunately I wasn't at the game, but I was watching it on Ross County television, and the co-commentator was Stephen Craigan. And I've got to say, I mean, I know that it's a Ross County platform, right? But he's not a Ross County fan, is he? And when he's doing his BT Sports work, surely he needs to be impartial. Well, he wasn't impartial last night. And when Celtic scored the winning goal, instead of talking about the warrior-like performance of Tony Ralston, who's like Lazarus coming back at Celtic, people are saying in the comment section he's a potential captain. He must be in the top 3 or 4 candidates for Celtic's captain. Instead of going on about that, the great comeback, the character shown by the side, the never-say-die attitude of Ange Postecoglou's side, Craigan just went on about how ridiculous it was that the Celtic fans were on the park. And, that was another thing that Postecoglou said. It was just over-exuberance, Kev. I mean, have these guys ever paid and gone to watch a football game and seen a last-minute winner and obviously the emotions and the passions that are involved in that?
I mean, I didn't actually... Where I was watching it, I didn't have the pleasure or the unpleasure to actually listening to Stephen Craigan, luckily enough. But he seems a wee bit like... He seemed a wee bit jabbed for somebody that's a Glentoran fan, eh? And he
did you say fan? Did you say fan, comma A there? I wasn't sure.
Maybe. Anyway, he seemed a wee bit jabbed for somebody that's a Glentoran fan, eh? So for Celtic, and he seemed to over celebrate as well for Celtic possibly going 6 points behind. But whatever float his boat, there's some joyless folk in the world, eh? Some utterly joyless people in the world, and we're probably heading for another lockdown and stuff like that. And folk actually got a bit annoyed at the fact that we were celebrating a 96-minute winner. And that is the joy of football. That is the joy of football. What's the point of turning up if everything was going to go to plan, eh? We live for those moments. And I love looking back through Celtic's history. How many last-minute goals have we scored? How many last-minute memories have we actually got? And last night is up there with the best. It's up there with the best because it triggered so many people, triggered so many bitter folk, that the fact that we got a 96-minute winner, and it wasn't down to luck. It was actually good to trust in. It was actually down to trusting the process, trusting that ball's breaking. That ball's breaking at the edge of the box. A guy who's been playing in the lower league has the mental ability to go, right, I'm just playing this ball to Callum McGregor. McGregor plays it to Rogic, and what a ball to the back post for Tony Ralston to actually score. What a leap. What a heart to actually get there. That's no luck. That's down to trust in the process. That is down to actually having trust in your character and your ability that chance is going to come. And I bloody loved it. It doesn't matter what didn't work for the 95 minutes before that. That worked. That's what we'll remember about that game last night.
No, you're right. I'm glad you mentioned Moffat's part in the goal, JP. It's one of the ones we were speaking about earlier, how McGregor's part maybe in the Motherwell goal might be forgotten. Owen Moffat, young, inexperienced, he's making his first competitive appearance for Celtic's first team, but he gets the ball at the edge of the box, and it would have been easy for him to try some speculative effort or just to try and dink it into the box. But he was very calm and composed, and as Kev says, he plays it to Callum McGregor. He is now an option. Because of our injury woes, he's an option on the right. And I think that when we're talking, I'm going to bring this up here, it's coming in from Stevie Boy. Kev, before you came in, JP and I were talking about, before you consider who plays at left back, you need to consider who's playing centre forward in this team. Because if Kyogo comes in, then that means Abada can play right. Juranovic is then an option at left back. So it just shows you how, at this moment in time, how threadbare the team is. But Stevie Boy comes in to say he's been nothing short, talking to Tony Ralston, of monumental. Leave him in his right back, though. He makes those last-ditch tackles that have saved us a couple of times. I mean, I can remember at least 3 last-ditch tackles that Ralston's made this season, twice in Europe, which is almost as good as a goal. And he's doing it up the other end of the park. He scored 5 goals this season for Celtic. He scored more goals than Ajeti and Giakoumakis combined. And as you say, to see a player coming through, almost as though he's been thrown on a scrap heap, he was the butt of most jokes. And now there's people in there saying that if he continues this, he might be a player of the year. JP, when you look at Ralston, we're in a situation now where, you know what, Ralston's your right back, and we need to figure out what's happening with the Croatian right back.
It certainly seems that way, and it seemed that way even before Juranovic came in, because Ralston's form was already good at that point. It's not like he's just started playing and performing because he's got a rival for his position. He was already playing well before that. And, when you think about everybody that wrote him off, and we all kind of were like, really, Ralston can't be our right back. That can't be who we're going into this season with, when we were starting him. But that was based on the fact that he'd gone out on loan moves to St Johnstone and Dundee United and not set the heather on fire at all there. Done nothing in those spells, certainly to my knowledge, that would feed back to Celtic to say, this is a guy you need to have in your team, and we need to get Ralston back from his loan spell. And then when he was given that contract at the start of the season, the year's contract, I mean, very few people were kind of like, well, that just shows you how thin our squad is if we're giving Anthony Ralston a contract. And now he's doing, turning in performances like this and scoring last-minute winners. I mean, last night it reminded me of the Didi Agat's goal off his knee at Dens Park, Neil Lennon's debut. It was like that. And I remember my mate Michael, who I was at the game with, he was there last night as well. I didn't see him. He was in a different stand. But he said to me on the way out of that game, he was like, there'll have been TVs, radios, children getting thrown at living room windows, as a result of that goal. And I was like, and I pictured all these different scenarios and houses and all that around the country, just folk raging, not just Rangers fans, other fans of other clubs as well, just like, oh, those swines getting a last-minute equaliser. Like Kev said, just if you're not of a Celtic persuasion, that goal last night did not go down well with people, really. It really doesn't, because,
the other thing, JP, as well, is there's some Celtic fans even embarrassed by it. Why are you embarrassed with your team scoring a last-minute winner and your support going utterly radio rental? I didn't get it. Fit was no for you if you can't let us go with that. That's me.
I got a text saying they didn't deserve that. I got a text from a very close friend. They didn't deserve that, and I went back going, "Come on, what would you been happy with the draw then?"
They didn't deserve it. I mean, this point that's coming through at the moment from Tim Anon, centenary season-esque. Well, we have been talking about Tommy Burns, so that seems fitting. Is that a picture of Messi with a Tony Ralston t-shirt on? I'm not sure.
It's Tom Rogic.
Is it Tommy Rogic? Oh, well, I'll have that one as well. Let's have a look ahead to Sunday's game then. I'll start with yourself, Kev. Tommy Rogic is one. He's got to start. What about the others who came in last night? So we had Scales at left back, Juranovic right wing or right mid, Montgomery left mid, and Abada through the middle. How many of those 4 changes can you see remaining on Sunday?
I think it depends who's actually fit. I can see Rogic. Rogic comes back in. He's the man that's making us tick at this precise moment in time. All depends on Kyogo if Kyogo's fit. I don't think Montgomery done much for his chances, like short term anyway, to be seen as an option there. I thought Scales dropped off the cliff, but I think that's down to a lack of football rather than a lack of ability. I think that was just match tiredness coming in. Look, did Scales do enough to maybe put him in the frame for the cup final? Probably, but I still think he'll go with Taylor. I still think Taylor is his number one left back at this precise moment in time. Juranovic on the right-hand side, even though we called it yesterday, did it really work? The argument's out on that. There can be an argument out on that, but it's the first time that he's played there. And I do think that he actually gives an option. Ralston has to play right back. He's going to be absolutely buzzing now after scoring that winner last night. He's going to be absolutely buzzing. So I think Postecoglou has a lot of choices to make, but I think he'll probably be having a look at it. If Kyogo is fit, he starts and he'll work it. The only ones that are guaranteed if fit are Kyogo, Rogic, Hart, Vickers and Starfelt. I think that, and Ralston. They're the only ones that are guaranteed, and the rest he's going to... Callum McGregor, obviously, as well. There's a couple of options that he's got there. I thought as well, when you look at the map, I thought Abada done well. He gave us more a forward option last night, what Turnbull had done at home. Whether he's got the impact of Kyogo again, it's only one game. It's a small sample size that we've actually got. But I would be, if Kyogo's not 100% fit, I would be quite happy with Abada through the middle again. I would be, rather than Turnbull being there.
So much rests on Kyogo being fit, because if he starts, JP, then Abada has done enough to start, but he'll be on the right-hand side. If he's on the right, do you play Juranovic? And if so, if he goes left back, then you're probably looking to bring Rogic back in, which means Beaton drops out. So there's so many changes if Kyogo's fit.
Yeah, it also means that the song makes sense as well, because Abada will be on the wing and Kyogo will be hopefully doing his thing. The whole thing about the left back, Kev, is the fact that it's Martin Boyle. That the left back is up against Martin Boyle. So you've got Juranovic, Scales, or Taylor up against Martin Boyle. Who is the best out of those three to match Boyle? You know, Juranovic is lightning. There was he tracked back at one point last night, and me and Paul Robbie were both kind of like, "Whoa, he was so rapid to get there," you know. So there's an argument that you could say maybe for his pace, Juranovic should start at left back. I know it does imbalance the side a little bit, having a right back playing at left back, but that all has to get taken into the equation for Sunday because of the nature of the opponent. I mean, Martin Boyle is, like it or not, Martin Boyle is a formidable opponent, as we saw when Glorious Technical or at Hampden in the semi-final. So we don't want that to happen to us.
I spoke about... Sorry, on you go, Kev.
You don't, but then for me, rather than the fullback, I'll be having a look at the more beat-on and also the centre halves to actually watch Boyles run, because they're going to need to get out because your fullbacks actually cut inside and go up the pitch. So you'll be... For me, I'm more looking at a pacey centre half coming out to Boyle, and that's more important to me than the actual fullback, because I want Boyle pinned. I didn't want him. I want him pinned inside his 25-yard line, because we're completely dominating the ball.
We started.
If that out ball comes in, then you're asking beat on, and one of your centre halves to nullify Martin Boyle.
Last night they started getting an awful lot of joy on that right in the basically that position. You know, there was a huge gap, and I don't know. There was the guy that Starfelt ended up fouling to get sent off. He was starting to get some real joy out there, and that doesn't bode that well for Sunday. You know, if you've got these gaps at that particular point, we're just, you know, we don't look 100%. I mean, of course, we're not going to look 100%. We've not got a settled side. We've got, you know, guys playing all over the place. You know, and that's natural. So it's going to be like that until we get everybody back in the right positions.
I had the audacity to call Ralston Lazarus earlier, but I'm just getting told by Lazarus that he is indeed Lazarus. So thank you very much for that. A couple of things I want to run by you, Kev, because you weren't here for the first half of the show. Starfelt, where do you stand on how it went for him last night? Good first half. And then obviously we know what happened with the sending off. Do you think he was unlucky to get booked first time round?
Definitely. I mean, he's definitely lucky. He's caught a flying elbow in the posse, and like then the referee tells him that he never saw it. Mm-hmm. So he's kind of his nose is splattered across his face. He's got a broken nose, and the referee's telling him that he didn't see it, and the referee books him. Where else do you actually see that? That's just like Alan Muir's take on the laws of the game. I mean, I didn't ken he had been booked. I mean, the feed I was watching, they didn't say, "Oh, Starfelt's been booked." So I was really, really surprised when the second yellow card came out. The second yellow is a yellow card. I'm not going to argue with that. I says in the comments last night that I thought the boy Jordan Little's challenge would have been one for your wee black book, Paul. But then seeing it again on the telly, there's no really much into it, but it is a flying elbow, and the game should have been stopped, and that's what Starfelt was going on about. He says the game should have been stopped. You saw that my nose was splattered across my face. You saw that I got elbowed in the face, and there's blood pouring from it, and you wouldn't stop the game. So to get booked for that is, for me, is out of order. That's what caused, for me, that caused the sending off. Obviously it did, because it was his second booking, but I'm giving the big man a pass. I'm giving him a free pass. It's poor refereeing that's caused that sending off.
No, thanks for that. I've seen some of your comments this morning. Thought I would invite them into the stream, so magic. The other thing I want to talk about is obviously there's been some protests at the home games in relation to silences. Last night was a different story. We're talking about 96th, 97th minute winners. A big part of that has got to be, JP, and you were part of it. It's got to be the coming together of the crowd and the team. I mean, that atmosphere and that energy that they buzz off, they feed off that, don't they, the players? And I think we've seen that more than ever last night.
Yeah, I think we've probably been starved of it with the protests recently, you know, where I think Juranovic had sort of said that they were a bit spooked by it, which makes you even more infuriated at the fact that this hasn't been, you know, nullified or you know, quashed by the club. Like, why is it turning into this ridiculous standoff where they're like, "Oh, we are not saying anything," even although by now surely this appointment isn't going to happen. You know, it would be volcanic if they suddenly turned around and went, "We're delighted to appoint to our staff Bernard Higgins as chief of whatever." You know, like, I mean, the place would erupt. I mean, if this is what's happened just on this tip-off that it might happen, imagine what would happen if it actually happened. So I don't know why this doesn't get quelled, because it's obviously affecting, you know, it's not nice to hear that the players are kind of aware of it now and, you know, kind of going, what's going on. So then when they see the opposite side of that last night, where it's just this explosion of joy and, you know, enthusiasm, and then it really creates that, it helps strengthen that bond between the team and the fans, which is, as we've always said, is so important, and was lacking massively last season. Well, it was non-existent last season, for obvious reasons. So yeah, I mean, it was hugely important last night for morale, you know, within the club, within the fan base as well. I think really important for the team as well, just to know that they can do that. They know that they can. They'll fight to the end, and that they've got it in them to get a result at somewhere like that on a Wednesday night. The old cliche, can you do it on a Tuesday night in Stoke? Well, we did that on a Wednesday night in Dingwall. So on to the next one.
We Fergus asked Ginola that question, do you think he could do it on a Tuesday night at Brockville? And obviously decided to go down to Newcastle instead after hearing B Fergus putting a wee bit of doubt in his mind. Kev, it's been an absolute pleasure that you've joined JP and I on the Thursday Bulletin. Thank you for your poetry. Tell us a wee bit about your book and where we can get it, when it's going to be available, because you're selling it as a pre-sale just now.
I'm selling it as a pre-sale just now, and I got an email about half an hour ago. It's in a van on the way to the printers in Stirling, so I'll be picking it up later on this afternoon. And everybody it's ordered will be posted out tomorrow or early Saturday, so you get it for Christmas. And it's for sale on Acsom.net. And basically, it's a story of Henrik Larsson's 7 years at Celtic, as told by a young relative finding an elderly relative scrapbook, and the scrapbook is basically a love letter to Henrik Larsson. The young guy reads it and falls in love with Henrik himself. So that's basically the and there's got loads of great stuff in it. It's the best poetry book written about Henrik Larsson. Okay, it's the only poetry book written about Henrik Larsson, but it's still the best one in the world at this precise moment in time.
Love it.
Andy McFarlane wants a signed copy, by the way, just so you know. That's been in strong. That's part of the deal for using the artwork. You need to give him a signed copy.
And they can get a signed copy, no problem. Anybody else can get a signed copy as well. Just get in contact with me. Get in touch.
Exciting times, Kevin Graham. Great achievement. And it's been brilliant today. We were very busy last night on the stream, peaking at about 2,800 plus last night. And it was all very positive vibes after such an important game, as it should be. But thank you for tuning in for the aftermath at 12:30 today. And we'll be back tomorrow. Thanks, everybody, for supporting us.